Welcome back to Inside City Hall. A report released last week by the nonprofit newsroom ProPublica details some troubling conduct in the New York City Police Department's community response team. Created in the fall of 2022, the CRT was billed as an elite unit that would work directly on Mayor Adams' public safety priorities, including cracking down on illegal motorcycles. But some officers within the NYPD raised warnings over the unit's conduct. And as a warning, we're going to show you some body-worn footage acquired by ProPublica in its report. Some of it is graphic. Back in 2023, an officer with the CRT, Raymond Perez, pulled his police car across the yellow line and into oncoming traffic. That was to stop a man on a motorbike. He crashed head-on. The man was Samuel Williams, who died in the hospital the next day after injuries he sustained from the crash. The family is now suing the city and the police department. Joining me now to talk about all of this is Eric Umansky. He filed this report and also serves as editor-at-large with ProPublica. Welcome to the program. Great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
I should mention that the family of Mr. Williams, who was killed after the NYPD officer hit him head-on, the family was billed thousands of dollars for damage to the police vehicle, although the city kind of dropped the request after the media reported on it. I think probably the place most New Yorkers know of the CRT and saw it in action was during those Columbia University protests. They were the people who were on this big people mover and walked up this long, sort of arm and stormed into Hamilton Hall and some other buildings. Why don't we know more about them?
Well, it's an interesting dynamic because Mayor Adams effectively, had his allies start the unit, as you mentioned, in the fall of 2022. And they did so without announcing it, without putting anything on the NYPD's website. And really, its existence surprised even members of the NYPD. They really did it on the down low.
And so for a lot of my viewers, I'm sure, and I from reading your report, I wonder what you think, if this is deliberate confusion. This came into existence around the same time as the neighborhood safety teams, the NSTs, another mayoral-created special unit. They had special training, they had specially designed uniforms, they were supposed to go out and do quality of life policing of a different sort. But the CRTs, which are created around the same time, don't have any of that. They don't have the training, they don't have the uniforms and so forth.
Yeah, or the vetting, actually. One of the things we found was that many officers had extensive records of misconduct. And whether it was purposeful or not, that it was sort of, started quietly while this other one got attention, that was the dynamic. And it went down to the officer level. So one of the things that commanders found when they looked at the unit was officers were going out with the team without even being assigned to the unit, so that commanders couldn't track their conduct. And one former commander described it to me as a ghost team.
Wow. So there were questions raised inside the NYPD, including at fairly high levels, about how the unit was created, who was in it, what their assignment was, why there was no training, and so forth. How were those concerns handled?
Those concerns were handled by not being addressed, most fundamentally, and at times by the heads of this unit. I mentioned that these were allies of the mayor, by the heads of the unit going to the mayor to complain about pushback.
And so, and the decision that came from City Hall was what, when these concerns were raised?
So it sort of depended. There was one instance that we heard of, actually a couple of instances, but one dynamic that we heard of lawyers going out with a team because it was a new team and they would watch the team's conduct. And lawyers would raise objections and say, what you guys are doing here is problematic. It wasn't, necessarily kicking or tasering somebody. It was, giving a summons that was illegal, for example, was one instance I heard. And when the lawyers objected, the head of the unit, or one of the heads of the unit, a officer at the time named Kaz Daughtry, called the mayor and said, these lawyers are stopping us from doing good policing, from fulfilling your priorities. And the mayor, according to the person I spoke with, said, I want the lawyer's name. I want to know who the lawyer is, and I want to know, is there objection in their opinion or the law?
You found also that the CRT's unit, they have racked up a lot of civilian complaints, any which way you look at it. Just describe how this is measured and what it might mean.
So one of the challenges in terms of CRT and in terms of their lack of transparency is that data that's put out about other similar teams has not been put out about CRT. For example, the NYPD puts out use of force data. How often have officers either engaged in use of force or alleged to have used force? That's not available about CRT. What I was able to get was citizens' complaints about CRT from the Civilian Oversight Board that New York City has, which is an independent board. And what we found, and this is not perfect because, again, there's a real lack of transparency. What we found is about 200 complaints of use of force regarding CRT, and that compares with this other similar team has about 100. Or to put it another way, CRT has twice the rate of complaints about use of force.
You report that at one point Mayor Adams was watching live feeds from body-worn cameras of unit members.
So this shocked me when I heard it, and frankly, I didn't initially believe it was true until I spoke to more sources. What we heard was, again, this head of the team, Kaz Daughtry, bought special body-worn cameras, new body-worn cameras that have the ability to live stream footage. Such that, it's almost like anybody can do with their phone nowadays, but it's on a body cam, and you have to give access to particular people. So then the obvious question is, who do you give access to? And the answer was the mayor.
Who surely has better things to do with his time.
I don't know what he was doing with his time. I don't know how often he was watching or what he was watching. There is another side of it, which is that once again, the head of the team did not tell others at the NYPD about this, including NYPD lawyers. And what that meant was, for a period of time, footage was not being shared with the court's defense lawyers for discovery.
Right, and so in order to actually make a case during an arrest, it's an important piece of evidence which is simply just gone. Or I should mention that we asked the NYPD for comment, we got no comment. We asked City Hall for comment, we got no comment. How did you do?
Well, it was a series of discussions, and I had approached the NYPD back in the fall, actually, when I was in the midst of reporting the story. I said, I want to understand this team better. I want more details. They just wouldn't give me any. The NYPD gave me a statement that said, it was an overarching statement that said, we believe in accountability, we believe in the job of CRT. The mayor's office gave me a similar statement.
They believe in accountability, but they themselves don't know who's in the unit, haven't kept track of who's in the unit, gave them no training, and have racked up hundreds of civilian complaints. This is what your report said. Now, you mentioned that Police Commissioner Keyshawn Sewell raised questions about this and raised them directly with the mayor on the day that she also quit. You don't make a direct connection there, but there might be a relationship.
Yeah, so one of the things that I reported is that there was a audit by this top commander at the NYPD, who's now retired, named Matt Pontillo, who did an audit about CRT and conduct, and he was quite concerned about it. And he had been supported in that investigation by Commissioner Sewell, who suggested that he gather commanders together and talk about it. After that meeting, which was in the early summer of 2023, later that day, Commissioner Sewell was happened to be called to a meeting with the mayor, and then without sort of prior knowledge of anybody, decided to quit. Now, I do want to be careful here because people told me, don't assume that one meeting led to...
She had a lot of other reasons.
She had a lot of other reasons, and I think broadly was being undermined by the mayor and by his allies, and basically CRT was part of that.
Okay, and the former head of it, Kaz Daughtry, is now Deputy Mayor for Public Safety.
That is true.
All right, the investigation continues. We'll continue looking at this. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for watching our YouTube channel. Let Spectrum News be your resource for balanced, in-depth political coverage, and click the subscribe button right here. You can also download our app or watch us on TV to learn more about the candidates, where they stand on the issues, and more. We'll see you then.